Raiden is the second of the 3 Jaguar launch titles that I'm talking about, and this one is the vertically scrolling shooter, as opposed to the horizontally scrolling shooter and the 3D shooter. Of the 3 launch games, Raiden is definitely the best. It's not even a competition. Even if you hate shoot-'em-ups, you can clearly see that Raiden actually has some competence behind it, unlike Trevor McFur and Cybermorph. Of course, the reason for that is that Raiden is the one launch game that isn't a Jaguar original. Raiden was originally released in 1990 to Japanese arcades, and it was the only significant success that arcade developer Seibu Kaihatsu ever had. Raiden was ported to pretty much anything capable of running a video game in the early 90s, which I'm sure didn't help the Jaguar using it as their premier launch title. Raiden holds a weird place in the Jaguar library because it's the only game on the platform that originated in Japan. This port was developed in the UK by Imagitech Design, a porting house that we're going to see a lot of as I go through the Jaguar library. But Raiden is definitely a Japanese design. I should say, even as a shoot-'em-up fan, Raiden has always been my least favorite of the big series. I have tried repeatedly to get into it, and it's just never hooked me. But that's a me problem. The plot of the game is the Earth is being invaded by crystals. That's the name of the aliens. We're not being invaded by a New Age shop. And of course, an alien invasion means one person has to fly up in a ship and destroy all of them. Okay, 2 people in the case of Raiden. The 2-player mode from the original arcade version is carried over to the Jaguar. So that's already a point in this port's favor. When you start up the Jaguar version, you're asked how many credits you want to play with. Basically a menu to let you know how many times you can continue. The Jaguar version of Raiden doesn't have any checkpoints. Instead, when you die, you continue exactly where you were, and continuing works exactly the same way. So if you're learning the game, there's no reason to not take 8 credits and just go for it. Raiden has 8 stages, and if you complete all of them, then the game loops back to the beginning. That's something that was common in earlier shooters, though by this point most of them have distinct endings. Okay, Raiden technically has an ending. It's just a text block that says, "Congratulations, you have destroyed the aliens and saved the Earth." And then you fly directly back into stage 1. But I guess that is technically an ending. As a shoot-'em-up, Raiden is a relatively simple one. Power-ups mainly drop from large cargo carrier-looking enemies. They're not helpless piñatas either. They'll fire back and can crash into you. The power-ups that they drop bounce around the screen and remain until you collect them, so you don't need to rush over and get something before it vanishes. There are exactly 3 power-up drops. The most common, and the one you'll be happiest to see, is the weapon power-up. It alternates between red and blue. Collecting one of these switches you to that weapon and powers it up 1 level. The red weapon are small little bullets, just like your default gun. As it powers up, it becomes more and more of a spread. The blue weapon is a laser. A narrow shot, but it does extra damage. Powering it up increases the rate of fire. You shoot by pressing buttons A or B, and there is no auto-fire here, even though the manual says that the machine gun is automatic. You will have to mash that terrible Jaguar controller as fast as you can. The second power-up that can drop is the missile power-up, and this flips between M and H. Collecting one of these will increase the number of missiles that you fire. M missiles fire straight ahead, and of course the H stands for homing missiles. The final power-up that drops like this is a bomb. You fire your bombs by pressing button C, and these are a pretty big explosion. Bombs are a real use it or lose it situation, so it doesn't hurt to be aggressive with them, particularly for clearing out bosses or areas with a lot of bullets flying at you. Some bullets can be shot down. They're the oblong ones that look like they spin a bit. Good luck telling them apart from the standard bullets at a glance when you're dealing with everything else on the screen, though. There are a few more things that you can collect. The medals that appear when you destroy certain structures are worth bonus points, but you have to get to the end of the stage to use them. If you die, then you lose them. Very rarely, you'll find structures that will release a P, and this powers up your weapon to its maximum potential, which honestly isn't really that impressive in this game. When you get destroyed, you lose all of your weapon power-ups, but sometimes one will emerge from your ship and you can collect it to get a little bit of power back. You also explode into shrapnel when you're destroyed, which can harm enemies around you. That's one of those things that sounds cooler than it actually works out to be, since the shrapnel doesn't do that much damage. There's one more special attack in Raiden, and unfortunately I can't show it off because it's co-op play only. If you've got another player with you, then the two of you can line up back to front, and then you'll fire an even bigger shot. You might ask yourself, what does the big fancy number pad on the Jaguar controller do for Raiden? And in this case, if you press the number 0 on it, then you turn the music off. That's it. That is the entire use of the pad. Now, something you might have noticed that I didn't mention in that whole thing about how to play is that there's no speed power-ups. Your ship is limited to a very pokey pace. And in the Jaguar version in particular, it feels like there's a little bit of a delay in movement. In this case, I think it's that they gave your ship a lot of inertia, so it's tough to get it to move or change direction. It's not like you're moving on ice, but it does make you feel a bit unresponsive. The stage design in Raiden also feels a bit awkward. Now in this case, the Jaguar is bringing over the levels from the arcade pretty much intact. So my issues here are mostly problems with the arcade version. What it mainly comes down to for me is that you're really not given a lot of opportunities to react. The screen scrolls a bit horizontally, and if you move to the sides, you might find yourself suddenly taking a bullet to the face from an enemy that was off the edge. One trick that they love is having enemies shoot in from the top of the screen really fast and zip down to the bottom third of the screen. But then they also have enemies enter from the bottom of the screen and go up. So there isn't really a reasonable band where you can settle in and have the opportunity to avoid a new ship that's coming in. Really, your only option is to memorize the stage layouts. And yeah, you have to do that in shoot-em-ups when you're going to master them and go for a single credit clear, but it's not a fun approach when you're just getting used to the game. It's the kind of thing that'll make people put it down and go, yeah, I'll play something else. My view on the Jaguar version of Raiden is that it's a competent but not outstanding port. It's the kind of thing that on a platform where it had actual competition, it would have faded into the background and no one would remember it. On the Jaguar, I'd wind up putting it in the top 20% of all the games on the system. That's how slim the pickings are here. An okay port of an okay game is one of the high points of the Jaguar library. I guess if you really love Raiden, you can play this version. But if you really love Raiden, you've probably already got another version you like better.